The financialization of modern war, how conflict became a business model. 1. The First World War. The United States remained officially neutral at the outbreak of World War I in 1914 but swiftly recognized a lucrative opportunity in Europe's financial exhaustion. American banks, most notably J.P. Morgan and Company, extended multi-billion-dollar loans to Britain and France. These financial instruments were not mere gestures of goodwill, they were high-interest arrangements secured against the military needs of Europe. The U.S. also acted as a purchasing agent, facilitating massive exports of steel, coal, wheat, and munitions. By the time the U.S. entered the war in 1917, its financial institutions were deeply invested in an Allied victory. The line between national interest and financial exposure was blurred, if not erased. Concurrently, the American public was conscripted into the financial war effort through the marketing of Liberty bonds, transforming ordinary citizens into lenders to the federal government. Emotional propaganda replaced spreadsheets. Uncle Sam wanted you, and your savings too. Footnote. This section outlines how the U.S. capitalized on European debt and civilian investment to profit from World War I. 2. The Second World War. World War II scaled the financial apparatus of war to new dimensions. Before the first American soldier set foot on European soil, U.S. industry had already secured contracts to manufacture tanks, planes, and warships. The arsenal of democracy operated at full throttle, and so did its financiers. The Treasury issued war bonds, $185 billion worth, purchased by over 85 million Americans. The Federal Reserve, never one to miss a party, bought the bonds too. Defense firms shifted overnight from civilian production to military contracts, most of which included built-in profit margins. It wasn't just about defeating fascism, it was about guaranteed returns. Meanwhile, the suspension of gold convertibility during the war signaled a pivotal monetary shift. With the Bretton Woods Agreement in 1944, the U.S. dollar was enthroned as the world's reserve currency, thanks, in part, to the financing of global destruction. Footnote. This section highlights how the U.S. cemented global financial dominance by monetizing the Second World War. 3. The Cold War and military Keynesianism. In the aftermath of 1945, the United States pioneered a novel economic theory, military Keynesianism. This doctrine postulated that continuous defense spending could stabilize the economy. It did, at the cost of embedding war into the federal budget. Aerospace, oil, and electronics industries expanded rapidly on the back of Pentagon contracts. Defense was no longer a temporary necessity, it was fiscal policy. As global tensions simmered under the Cold War, domestic spending on the military apparatus grew. Defense became a jobs program wrapped in patriotism and funded through a perpetual cycle of bond issuance, taxpayer contributions, and quietly ballooning national debt. Guns and butter became guns as butter. Footnote. This section explains how Cold War military spending became a permanent feature of U.S. economic strategy. 4. The Vietnam War and the end of the gold standard. The Vietnam War marked the moment when the U.S. economy could no longer mask its addiction to war finance. President Johnson's dual promises, winning a war and launching the Great Society, were funded by deficit spending. The inevitable result? Inflation. Lots of it. By 1971, the dollar's tether to gold snapped completely. The U.S. dollar became a fiat currency, valuable because the government said it was, and because the military backed it. The economic aftermath included wage stagnation, increased national debt, and the creeping realization that inflation is just war's invisible tax. Spoiler alert, the bondholders still got paid. Footnote. This section examines how Vietnam-induced deficits led to the collapse of the gold standard and a fiat-based economy. 5. The petrodollar and Middle East conflict. After the oil shocks of the 1970s, The U.S. brokered a system in which global oil would be priced in dollars. This petrodollar arrangement ensured constant global demand for U.S. currency, regardless of whether America produced anything other than debt and drama. In return, the U.S. promised Middle Eastern stability, often delivered via military presence. The financial implications were enormous. Even without gold, the dollar maintained global dominance. The system incentivized both resource control and geopolitical intervention, particularly in oil-rich regions. Footnote. This section describes how the U.S. dollar remained dominant by linking energy markets to American military protection. 6. The Gulf War and market spectacle. The 1991 Gulf War marked the arrival of warfare as public relations. Military contractors used the conflict as a showroom. Precision-guided bombs didn't just explode, they impressed shareholders. Broadcasted warfare became a televised infomercial for future defense contracts. The war was short, the contracts were long, and the profits were impressive. Defense stocks rallied. Wall Street responded not with solemnity, but with bullish enthusiasm. Turns out, war sells, especially when it's over in 100 hours and looks good in slow motion. Footnote. This section analyzes how the Gulf War became a commercial showcase for modern military technology and finance. 7. The War on Terror and the $6 trillion price tag. Post 9/11 wars in Iraq and Afghanistan came with a price tag of approximately $6 trillion, most of it financed, not taxed. The cost includes not just battlefield expenses but long-term veteran care and compounding interest on the debt. And yet, financial markets barely blinked. Defense contractors thrived. Banks happily underwrote the spending. Meanwhile, Americans shouldered the cost through inflation, underfunded public services, and increasing national debt. Military success was debatable, financial success was undeniable. Footnote. This section details the financial mechanisms and long-term debt implications of the post-9/11 military campaigns. 8. The financial architecture of modern conflict. In the modern era, war is not an event, it's a recurring line item. Defense spending exceeds $800 billion annually. Entire states and industries depend on it for economic survival. Politicians vote for it. Wall Street finances it. The public funds it, often unknowingly. Crises, whether military or economic, are treated as financial opportunities. Pandemic stimulus, bank bailouts, and war expenditures follow the same logic: issue debt, protect corporate interests, socialize the cost. Conflict is no longer an anomaly, it's a feature. Footnote. This section argues that war and financial crisis are now integrated systems designed to benefit capital and maintain control. 9. The true cost of war, inflation, dependency, and control. The real battlefield isn't just overseas, it's domestic. The inflation at the supermarket, the taxes on a paycheck, and the cost of borrowing are all symptoms of a system that thrives on debt and volatility. Those who control financial levers profit from instability, everyone else learns to live with it. In this model, financial literacy is not just about personal budgeting, it is survival training. Understanding the system is the first step toward not being exploited by it. Footnote. This section highlights how war-related financial practices directly affect everyday economic conditions for citizens. 10. Conclusions and structural implications. Modern war is as much a ledger entry as a military campaign. The mechanisms perfected during 20th century conflicts, debt financing, bond issuance, and private sector contracting, have become foundational to both U.S. domestic policy and global financial strategy. Conflict creates the conditions for debt. Debt creates dependency. Dependency ensures control. And those who understand this system will either profit from it, or be crushed by it. Footnote. This section concludes that war and finance have merged into a self-reinforcing system of power, profit, and control.